right around the end of my time at Walter Reed, I remember like I developed this habit of like I'd get out of my room and like I'd wheel outside so I can get some sun for like 30, 40 minutes, and I have like an iced tea from the vending machine. And I would just sit there and just zone out and have my tea, sometimes listen to music. And I think he was like a Vietnam veteran or something. He was sitting on the bench kind of like right next to me, and he kind of like scooted over and he was just, like, hey, how's it going? I was like, oh, it's not bad. It's no big deal. Like, I'm getting out of here, going to Texas. And he's like, so what happened? And I'm just like, all right. And I told him my story. I was like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, I'm gonna recover. Like, it's fine. And like, I had this whole plan. And he looks at me and he's just like, hey man, he's like, I just need you to know. He's like, this is gonna haunt you for the rest of your life. He's like, the sooner you could come to terms with that, the sooner it's gonna be easier to deal with. And I was like, okay, that's
sure,
cool,
old man. Yeah.
It's like, thanks, man. That's awesome. I'm just drinking my tea. And I'm like, man, dude. Like, and I'm starting to think about it, and I'm like, thinking about my injuries, and like, I could easily just do like, yeah, the doctors are like telling me I'm never gonna do this, I'm never gonna do that, like, definitely never getting back to the job. And I'm like, man, dude, this guy's got a point, but like, I'm not gonna let anything haunt me that I don't want to haunt me. Like, it's completely my decision. And so whether it be intentional or whatever, like, I definitely needed to hear that at the time, because I was like, no, like, I'm not letting anything haunt me that I don't want to haunt me. So that helped. That definitely helped drive me even further on and push past like all kinds of physical pains and things like that. Fast forward a little bit, got down to Texas, the Center for the Intrepid, another amazing center of excellence where just there's a unbelievable community of wounded warriors and caregivers that really will take it to the limits or push you very, very hard in therapy. And that's probably one of the reasons why I was able to recover the way I was, especially at the time, because I got down to Texas and I couldn't remember how to walk. I definitely couldn't remember how to go downstairs. That was pretty scary. And so, very slowly, you'd kind of like hit plateaus, but you'd continually increase your recovery over the time that you were there. And I think it was like 6 or 7 months into it, we developed this little community of wounded warriors that would do like these CrossFit workouts or these Metcons that were like high intensity, but they involved people with like all kinds of disabilities. But no matter what, we would figure out a way to overcome those disabilities. Like, if you didn't have hands, the people at the CFI would figure out how to hook the rower up to these things that you'd put on your arms so you could do the row portion of the workout. I'll never forget another one of my close buddies didn't have any legs. Like, so wall push-ups were kind of hard, or the handstand push-ups were kind of hard. So he'd put his prosthetics up on the wall and we'd hold them up there for him, and he'd do the wall push-ups. And it was
sounds like it should be easier because it doesn't have legs.
Well, yeah, it was just absolutely unbelievable demonstration of the human will. Right. And just basically I don't care what hand I've been given, like, I'm not going to let this haunt me. I'm not going to let this bother me.
We're not going to use it as an excuse to not keep competing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that went on for 13 months. I was at the CFI. While I was there, in the back of my head, like, I was still like leaning very far forward. Like, I'm getting back. I'm going back to my team. But in the back of my head, I'm like, this might not work. I better have like a plan B. So I started going to college. Yeah. And it was, I was just like, yeah, I got to go to college because I better get good at something else. This is the only plan I had. Like, this from the start was the only plan I had. So I started going to school, and I realized that, like, this is kind of cool. This is awesome. In high school, plucking me out of, math or science or any of the different classes, and you were like, hey, Espo, why do you think you need to know triangulation? I've been like, I don't know. I'm never going to ever use this. This is the dumbest thing ever. I had zero perspective. Yeah, that's just who I was in high school. Did not care about school. I cared enough about school to get through school. And then I just cared about playing hockey or racing four-wheelers. Those are the things that I cared about.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of us have in common is we're experiential learners. And until you can find a reason through experience and falling down a whole bunch of times, then until you have a reason, then we're not very interested in stuff.
Yeah. And so going to college was actually a lot of fun. I started learning things that I could actually apply. I could see why they're important. And I was doing really, really well in school. And I did that all the way till the end of school. But back to CFI. While I was there, I think it was towards the end of my time, there was a nonprofit organization called, I'll think of it in a second.
Yeah.
But there's a nonprofit organization that approached me and they're like, hey, we're going to take a couple wounded warriors and veterans across the country on bicycles to prove the capabilities that people still have after they've been injured severely.
So they're not putting you in a basket. You're actually...
No, yeah. You're pedaling, you're doing all this stuff, no motors. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Sign me up. Thankfully I called down to my unit. I was like, hey, can I do this? And they're like, absolutely, if it's part of your therapy. So I honestly didn't believe it until like the day we started. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Went out to San Francisco. Day one, meeting Robin Williams and the inaugural ceremonies, who rode with us for a couple days. Probably one of the best famous people I've ever met.
So not just like the first hour where the cameras were there,
no,
but like for a while.
Yeah, he was an adamant cyclist. Absolutely hilarious. Probably more funny off camera than he was on camera. And loved who we were and what we were doing. And not that I or like any of us really need affirmation, but like it just absolutely affirmed like what we were doing was meaningful, is important, and that was really cool. But yeah, we met in San Francisco. Day one, dipped our rear tires in the Pacific Ocean. That was World Team Sports, by the way.
Okay.
World Team Sports was the organization that did us. Yeah, shout out. We dipped our tires in the Pacific Ocean, and 63 days later, and right around 4,000 miles, we dipped our front tires in the Atlantic. That's the first time I ever started talking about my experience, and like what we were doing, and like is raising awareness, is basically so that people can get out there and do things no matter what's going on. Basically to inspire people to kind of just, do what you're passionate about, or just get out there and have a hobby, and recover from whatever's happening. Probably one of the highest points in my recovery process. And if you ever get a chance to tour country on a bicycle, you get to eat as much food as you want. You sleep really well.
Right.
And it was amazing. There's a bunch of other amazing individuals on that too, that I could probably talk for an hour on. Anyway, after that I went to 2-1, back to 2-1, finally made it back to 2-1. And I was still very injured. Like I could cycle all day long. I could lift a lot of weights, but like as soon as I threw a ruck on, I would get about a mile down the road and I would have to drop it, and I would be like my ankles would be in severe pain. Right. Like they just were, I just couldn't move. And usually for like several hours or like days after that, it would just be severe pain. So I had now been recovering for almost 2 years, and I was like, I got to do something else. I got to go and do something, because I was sitting there watching all my buddies deploy, watching all my buddies work, and that was really hard. So that was my first move to AETC, where I thought it would be the greatest thing ever, and it was a really good experience, and everything that happened was exactly what needed to happen. Right. So I asked to come back to Texas, where I had a lot of experience. The Center for the Intrepid was right down the road, so if I needed any more care on my feet or my ankles, I could go there. And I became an instructor at the Combat Control Selection Course, and eventually ran what was known as the Battle Program. For all those out there that have been in the Battle Program or experienced it,
they're not going to apologize to those poor kids.
I'm not going to apologize. Rather, I'll say you're welcome. And it was